Greetings, this is Jim Lindsay. This is a CIS 320 lesson. This lesson is over Chapter 3 from your Visio textbook, Step-by-Step Microsoft Visio 2013. And this is a big chapter, so let's get to it. There's a lot to learn about. I won't cover every single skill that's covered in this chapter, but I'll hit the high points. But even with me hitting the high points, this is a big chapter. So let's get set and let's get to it. The first thing that it talks about that I want to discuss with you is the ability to create and format text boxes. I've already downloaded, or I have the Chapter 3 files from the textbook open in a folder right here. Please download the files for Chapter 3 so you can work along with me. And what you want to do is basically watch this video for a couple of minutes, pause it, go and try it out yourself, and make sure that if you have any questions that you contact me and you learn the answers to any questions that you may have about this software, because what your homework assignments will require of you is to employ the skills that you learn about in these chapters. And so it's important to be mastering these skills as we go, basically building up a toolkit so that at the point when you want to create your own stuff, which is what you'll have to do in the homework assignments, you'll have those skills ready to put to work. So what I'm going to start with is the file called Text Exercise A Start. I'm going to open this up, and what you see here is a flow chart that you saw from the preceding chapter, and they'll do this a lot in this book. They'll continue to use the same sorts of examples. Gives you some continuity, so you're not constantly learning about having to learn brand new stuff on top of a new skill. So you get like some familiarity with this, what the file looks like in the first place. We built this when we were learning about connectors and connecting shapes in the previous chapter. So I'm going to zoom in, and I'm actually going to take this shapes task pane and just move it out of the way because we don't need that. And what we want to do is just work with this area up in here. We can accomplish pretty much all the stuff that we want to accomplish with the text pretty much in this space up at the top of this page. So what they first want you to understand is that you can select a shape and then put text on top of that shape. And as I mentioned in the preceding chapter, the lesson for the preceding chapter, every object that you put on the shape in Visio has three parts. It has the shape itself, the little picture, it has connection points, and then it has a text block. So how do you get text into these shapes? Well, there's three different ways to do it. I'll show you the three ways. The first is right here. I'm going to just click on that shape, and I'm just going to put beginning. I'll just type begin. And then I'll go to this next shape, and I'm going to double click it. And when I double click it, it goes into the text box. And I believe the text they wanted on this one was prepare expense report. And you'll see if I'm going to go ahead and type that so it's spelled wrong. And get that right there. And let's go ahead and go to review and see if we can do a spelling check on that. It'll tell you, hey, you spelled report wrong. And then you can make a change. So that's the second way. The first way is just click on something and start typing. Second way is double click, go into that text block. Last way is to have what's called the text tool active. I'm going to go to home, and you'll see instead of having the pointer tool or the connector tool or any of these drawing tools that we've all talked about already, there's this one called the text tool. If you have that active and you select something, then you can then start to modify the text. And so what this text box is supposed to indicate is this amount over greater than $1,000. And so again, this is a flow chart, and that's what that. I'm going to go back to the pointer tool, and so that's what that shape would be trying to communicate to somebody. And if it were like if the answer was yes, then you'd follow this path. If the answer was no, you would follow that path. Again, these are lines here, and you can even put text on things like lines. I'm going to double click this one, and I'll put yes, and this one is no. Double click this one, put no. You have the ability to rotate text boxes, so I'm going to go ahead and select this one. And where that comes from is this tool you see right here. There's something called the text block tool. So we have the pointer tool, the text tool, and the text block tool. And with the text block tool active, I can then take this text block, which is part of this shape, the line, and then I can do things like rotate the text. I can actually move the box if I want to, put it up here. I have it a little bit not quite straight. That looks a little bit better. I could move it to where it was up on top of the line if I wanted it to not actually be right on top of it. And so that's the text block tool, which is right there. And so I'll go back to the pointer tool now. So there you see 3 different ways to access or get into the text block for that tool. Now we can also we can modify the formatting of the text that's on our screen. And any formatting that you could do in Microsoft Word, different fonts and font sizes and font effects like italicizing and underlining and strike through and all that sort of stuff. I mean, that's all here. This is an image program, and man, it is very, very rich and robust with its ability to allow you to modify the look of things like text. And so just to make this really easy, I'm just going to select all those shapes at once. Go over here and select all of that so it all gets selected. I'm going to go to the font area on the home tab here. I'm just going to make the font bigger. I can do that all at one place. I'm going to make it up to, say, a 14 point or 18 point. It's a little bit too big. Let's go back to, say, 14. Great. So that's getting into a shapes text block and then working with it. Now you can also create your own text boxes by themselves. How would you do that? Well, you select the text tool and then you draw the area that you want to have text on the screen. So I'm going to put something right here, and this is the title of my flowchart. Obviously that's a really terrible title, but I'll put an exclamation point on there, and I can select that text, go to the formatting here, and I can change the font size. I can change the font itself. Go with this Bernard MT condensed. You have font italicizing, underlining, font colors, all that sort of good stuff. So there you go. I go back to the pointer tool, and that should give you a really good start on using text. How do you get good at this? Well, you practice, and it's just like if you wanted to be good at free throws in basketball. You go out in a driveway with your basketball and you just shoot and you shoot and you shoot. So you need to be making drawings and doing these exercises that come along with the book, and you're going to get used to how to use these various features. All right, let's go to our next point. Our next point is the use of screen tips and comments, and they're 2 different things, and they both have potential uses. So I'll save this one and close it, and what they want us to do is basically just pull up the category of network diagrams. And so I'm going to go to go to category, go to a network, computer network. It's talking about a computer network drawing, and just a basic network diagram is fine. You could do this with any shape you wanted to. What you want is just to make this pane a little bit larger where you can actually see some of the shapes here. And let's just get a couple of shapes. I'm going to put a server out here, and I'll put a printer out here because those are different. And we'll make the printer a different color just so you can really tell them apart. So it's red and the server is blue. And we'll zoom in here. And we're going to put what's called a screen tip on the server, and we'll put a comment on the printer. All right. And so with the server, with the screen tip, we'll accomplish that through the Insert tab of the menu. We'll go to Insert, and you'll see that there are, under the text area, you have the option for something called a screen tip. I actually have to have it selected. So I'm going to insert a screen tip. Again, it had to be selected. And then what I type is this, and this is the web server for our company. I hope you type better than I do. So this is the web server for our company. Now, when does that actually show up and do us some good? Well, somebody has to hover over the top of that. Let me show you. So if I put my mouse pointer over the top of that and it sits there for a moment, it pops up. This is the web server for our company. That's what I typed in there as the screen tip. Now, I'm taking a chance. If I have a piece of information that I want to share with the viewer, and I want to make sure that they see it, using a screen tip like that is chancy, because in order for them to see it, they have to hover over the top of it and stay there long enough for the tip to actually pop up on their screen, right? And so that's not the safest or the most conservative thing to do if you're trying to communicate something to somebody. Instead, what you'd probably want to use is what's called a comment. And let me put a comment over here on the server. So I'm going to select the server, and this time instead I'll go to the review tab of the ribbon, and you'll see under the comment area you can put what's called a new comment. So I'm going to go to the comment area, and I'm going to put, this is our HP LaserJet 5 printer, and I'll hit enter. Now I'll just go ahead and close that up, and you'll see now on this shape there's now a little bubble, basically a little comment bubble above it to the right, and that wasn't there a second ago. And so if somebody sees that, all they have to do is just basically click on it, and it shows that what the comment is. And so obviously I wrote that comment a moment ago, but let's say this is a file that's on our file server, and instead of Jim Lindsay, now John Doe is in here. John Doe can click on that and say, I love this printer, and his identification would show up there. So there can start to be a little conversation about whatever this shape is. And so where would this come in handy? Well, let's say you're doing some sort of a floor plan for a new addition to your office building, and you're trying to decide where should we put some of this new stuff, or what kind of printer should this new printer be. People could chime in that are part of the work party, say, like, well, I think this should be a Hewlett-Packard LaserJet 5, and I think this should be a compact so-and-so printer, and I think this should be a Sony so-and-so printer, and you can get that kind of input through these comments. And again, how you know that that's there is that this little bubble pops up next to it. So those are two different ways to share information with a viewer. These are almost like Easter eggs. You've probably heard of Easter eggs in video games, where it's just kind of like a hidden thing that if you're lucky you find it, or it's like basically I think it's like HTML alternate text. When you hover over the top of a picture on a web page, a lot of the times it will pop up alternate text for you. That's the tag. It's the actual tag is the alt tag, and so that's essentially what you're creating through that insert screen tip. And so those are two things for you. Wanted to make sure we talked about that in the lesson. Okay, let's move on to our next topic, and our next topic is a huge one. This is something called shape data, and I'm going to continue to use this drawing I have right here. I'm just going to scoot over just a touch here, and I'm going to add one more shape to it, a fax. I'm going to add this fax right here, and this fax, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it have a different color so it's very easy to see that it's something different. We'll make it green. So we have blue, red, and green here. And next, what I want to do is I want to pull up another task pane. We'll get this guy out of the way. We'll take this dude and just collapse him. We don't need him anymore right now. And over here, I'm going to go to the view, and I'm going to go to the task pane. I'm going to let this shape data task pane pop up, and there it is right there. And what you'll see, you can make this a little bit larger if you like, but as you select a shape, you'll see that, and it's most noticeable when you go from something like the fax machine to the server, or the fax machine to the printer. There are different fields that are available for you to input information about shapes in your drawing. This is data about shapes, and what's really, really cool about Visio is that as you supply this information about your shapes, you can then later start to run reports. And so if you do this for your computing equipment, for example, you can then do an inventory report, and you can include things like, where is this supposed to be? Who is the owner of this supposed to be? When was this installed? How much memory does it have? What was the cost of this thing? How much does it depreciate? And so as you get this information on, in these reports, you can send your workers out, and they can basically have an easier time of finding the stuff that they're supposed to find in the real world, because you've kept track of it and through your software. Now what it's doing is it's building a Microsoft Access database for this drawing. And if you've ever worked with Microsoft Access, this interface should start to feel kind of similar to what you've experienced with Microsoft Access. And when we get into the portion of this lesson where you start to create your own fields for shape data, it should very much feel like you should be really comfortable with it, because again, like in CIS 243, you've been introduced to Microsoft Access as a database management system, and it's working in real time behind the scenes with this drawing. And as you save the drawing in that VSDX file, it includes that little Access database with it. It's pretty cool stuff. And so how do we use this? Well, it's really easy to use. Let's just put some information in about these things. Let's say, let's go with the building. Let's say that this one's in Grice Hall, and to populate it, all you have to do is select the shape, and then let's say that this one's in MMTH, and let's say this one's in DSU. All right, then we'll go back here. Let's say for our server, let's give it a name. Let's go with like the network. I believe that network name is one of the choices here. There it is. And I'm going to call this file server AP11. And this one right here, the printer, this one should also have a network name. There it is. I'm going to call this HP LaserJet 5. And this one, because it's a fax machine, it's not going to get a network name because it doesn't have that capability. Whereas these two are computing pieces of equipment. This is a like an old school phone fax kind of machine, so it doesn't get to have that same field. And so because that doesn't exist for it, so that gives you some proof that, or as an example, that there are different fields for different pieces of different shapes. And what Microsoft has tried to do is they've tried to provide shape data fields that would be appropriate for pieces of, for shapes that you'd put into drawings. Based on what they think, based on user input that they receive, these are potentially fields that people would want to supply information about. Now, you can put your own in here too, and that's covered in this chapter as well. Wait a minute, I take that back. We don't create our own fields in this lesson. We'll do that in another lesson, and we're going to come back to this over and over again. I beat this like a drum or a dead horse, because this is by far one of the most powerful features of Visio, and so I'm going to put you through the paces on this. Trust me. But they do show us in this chapter. They also show us how to, in a drawing, if you wanted to display some of this shape data on the page, how would you do that? And that's accomplished through the use of fields. And so I'm going to select, see, all of these have the building on here. So I'm going to select all three of these shapes, and I'm going to go to Insert, and you'll see under the text area there's something called Fields. So I'm going to go to Field, and then I then get to choose, okay, which category of shape data do you want to, or which category of field do you want to put onto your page. And I'm going to choose shape data because I know that all three of these have shape data that I've just input, and I know that all of them have building information. Now, as I scroll up and down this list, every field for the shapes is included, including the stuff that's not there for the facts. Like, so if I go with, let's just use network name just for the heck of it, because we know that the server and the printer have a network name, but the fax machine is not. So we're going to insert shape data, specifically the network name. Hit OK, and it puts that on the screen. So that's pretty cool. So let me go back here and say, let's say we upgrade that from an HP LaserJet 5 to HP LaserJet 11. Woohoo! you'll see that it automatically updates here on the screen. And because this one doesn't have a network name, it doesn't show. So that's the inserting a field. Now, that's typically not how you use shape data. In fact, that's a very weird instance, a weird example of using shape data. Instead, what you would do with shape data is, like I said, run those reports and then generate reports that would be exported either to Excel or to XML or even HTML, and used in those ways. And so I'm going to give you lots and lots of practice with that type of work. Let's do this. Let's get out to where we can see the whole page and get this right here. All right, let's get the shape data. We're done with that for the moment. And what I want to finish this lesson with is the following. All right, I would like to take several of the portions of this chapter where it talks about inserting images, pictures basically, as well as grouping things, and then putting those into background pages, and including things like backgrounds from Visio as well as borders from Visio, and then putting those, applying those to foreground pages, which I showed you that the background and foreground page stuff in a previous lesson. Let me show you another way to do that, with a more robust way to do that as we go through the rest of this lesson. Okay, let's begin by let's name this page. I'm going to right click this page, go to its page setup, and I'm going to call this the network drawing. All right, so that's our network drawing. And now I'm going to add a background page. I'm going to click on it, and I'm going to call this I'm going to right click it, go into its page setup, and do a couple of things. One, I'm going to designate it as a background page, and I'm going to call it the logo page. Not the plogo page, the logo page, because I'm going to put a logo on here. And I'll hit apply and OK to close this dialog box, and you'll see that logo page is italicized. That tells me that it's a background page. And I'm going to I'll just throw something on here. Let's put like this firewall out here. That's the shape is for a firewall, and we'll make that nice and big. And we're going to put insert. Let's actually go to the home tab, get some text on here, and this is the firewall company. So we've got something called the firewall company, and as a result of this being the firewall company, we have a big picture of a firewall as our logo. Get that text to make it a little bit bigger so it's easier to read. And essentially what I'm doing is I'm trying to make, this is kind of stuff that would be like the header or the footer, that's going to be on our picture here, and then all the other stuff is going to be up on top of this. So that's fine. I still I want to show you one or two other things on fields. Let me zoom in here to a corner. Let me go to this left corner first. So let me zoom on down here, and you've seen the text tool already, right? So I'm going to go to the text, and I'm going to call this. I'm just going to click on here to put a text box on here. I'm going to call this page. Basically what I want is I want page X of Y. And what I'm doing is I just literally typed page X of Y. But what I want to be here is whatever page of the drawing this is. So let's say it's a 5-page drawing, and this is the second page. I want it to say page 2 of 5. That's what I want to be here, right? So with that in mind, I'm going to take that X out, and I'm just going to go to the Insert tab and go back to this field thing that you've seen before, because this is where you really use fields. These are those different categories. We used shape data the first time a second ago, but look at all these other categories. There's like date and times and document information. It's basically like metadata about when the thing was created and who created it, and keywords, all that sort of good stuff. Here's page information. We'll use this one for right now. We'll say the page number, okay, and it puts this little field in there. And instead of Y, we actually need to have the number of pages in the document. So again, I'll insert a field. I'll go to that category for page information, and it's the number of pages, right? There you go. So then I'm going to put that on my page. Go back to home, go back to my pointer tool, and I'll just move this over to make sure that it's going to fit. And there we go. And I'll come to this other corner down here. I'll put another instance of field stuff down here that's really common. And I'm going to put, bear with me one second. Okay, go back to my pointer tool, and there we go. Let's come on over to the right here. Go to text tool. I want to put a text box right there. And I'm going to go to the insert field to field, and I want this time I want the date. I'm going to say the current date and time. Okay, and then I'll go back to my pointer tool, and again I'll position that so that it's at a good place on my page. Go right here, so I've got like a field down here talking about this is page X of Y. I have the current date right here, and this is a pretty decent looking what would be a background page. Now, how would we finish this up to make this look really cool? Well, if you go over to the design tab, there are a number of themes, a number of variations. We're going to get into those in a later chapter, but just for right now, just to make it look kind of cool, I'm going to go ahead and click on, say, that theme right there. Starts putting some colors in place, and these are different variations of those different themes there. These are basically variations of that same theme right there. We'll go with this second one right there. Now, if you click on the button for backgrounds, you'll see that there are a number of pre-built backgrounds that you could employ on this in this drawing. I'm going to go with this one with the little globe here. Put that right there, and it puts that in addition to the picture that I inserted, in addition to the text that I put. And note that it also put another background page. And so what it's done is it's basically put a background page on top of my background page. There are even borders and titles. This is one of the things it talks about in your text. So let's say you liked that look right there for a title. You can select that right there. And so I already had a title and a page number down here, so I'll go ahead and undo that. But these borders and titles are pre-built borders and titles that look nice, and you can scroll through. There are a variety of those available for you that you could use to make your drawings look really cool. So I'm going to save that real fast. I'll just put it on my desktop. It's always good to save as you work. And now what I need to do is I need to apply this background page to that foreground page. So I'll go back to my foreground page, right click it, go to its page setup, and I'm going to, for the background page, use a drop down box for the logo page. And okay. So now these three guys are on the foreground, on top of my background page, which includes Visio's background, pre-built background, as well as fields. You'll see that it says it's page 1 of 2 right down here. If I add additional pages to this drawing, you'll see that now I go back to the network page, it's page 1 of 5. These are my 5 pages down here, and it has the date right here, and this will update. So if you open this tomorrow, that tomorrow's date would show up, or then whatever day that it is, that would show up there. And these are neat ways to utilize these skills. Now, one last thing that's mentioned in here is grouping. I'm going to take this guy and this guy and this guy, and I want to group those. What does that mean? Well, you essentially take multiple things and fuse them together or merge them together to become one thing. So let's say these 3 things together, I wanted those to move around the page or not get messed up, so I would group them. Well, how do you do that? I'm going to zoom in a little bit, and I'm just going to select those 3 shapes right there. All 3 selected, and it's very easy. I just go to the home tab. There is a drop down box for group, and you group them. And when you do that, at that point, when you grab one, you grab all 3. So that's grouping, and it comes in really handy, especially like when you start to have a complicated drawing and you want certain parts to not get away from one another. All you have to do is group those. Now if you want to get those to break apart later on, all you have to do is select the group stuff, go back to group, and ungroup them, and then they'll become their own independent entities again. So that's mentioned in this chapter as well. Okay, let's close with this. I'm going to save that and close it. And what I want to close with now, what I want to close with is basically the showing you the insertion of some photos as well as the use of layers. And again, this is pretty cool stuff. You're going to see this on pages like 131 through 139. So we'll get 131 through 139. You're going to see this stuff mentioned and talked about in detail. I'm going to open up corporate diagram A, and for this corporate diagram A, I'm going to insert the picture of the International Office JPEG and the Starfish JPEG. I'm going to insert those pictures, and then I'm going to start to manipulate those using something called layers. And so let me open up the diagram first, the picture first. This is that corporate diagram A picture. And how would you insert a picture? Well, pretty self-explanatory. You've got an insert tab. I'm going to insert pictures just like you guys would do in Word, Excel, or PowerPoint. I'm going to go from the desktop in this folder. This is Chapter 3. I'm going to select both of these because I want both pictures. Put those in my drawing here. And I'll put the building at the bottom, and I'm going to take the starfish and make it more or less at the upper left hand corner of it. Try to move that over just a touch to make sure it's flush. That looks good. And I'll take this picture right here. This is from a type of flowchart. Now I put that down there and see that you can't see it. It's a layering issue. I'm going to take this picture of the building and I want to push it backwards. You can press it backward by one step at a time, or you can send it all the way to the back. So now you see those three shapes and the layers. And so think of these as like 3x5 cards. And so and you can lay the 3x5 cards on top of each other, right? Just like if you were doing this in the real world. You have that ability here in Visio, just like in the real world with your 3x5 cards. Now what we can also do is assign named layers. We can assign names to these layers and then affect the characteristics of those layers. We can make them locked, or we can make them invisible. We can do color codes to them, all kinds of really cool stuff. And so what I'm going to do, I'm going to select this picture first, and I'm going to go to, from the home tab up here, we've got this on the far right, there's this editing portion of the tab. And you can click on layers. And I'm going to assign this to a layer. Okay, so I'm going to assign to layer. It's going to say, okay, right now that picture is a part of the flowchart layer, because this whole drawing is a type of flowchart. It's a weird kind of flowchart, but that's beside the point. What I want to do, I want to create a new layer, and I'm going to call it a new layer, and it's called building photo. So that in this new layer, the building photo layer, the only part of it so in that layer is that image right there. Hit OK. Now if I go back to this layers button and go to layer properties, you'll see that, let me move this guy over just a touch. Get to where you can see the drawing as we do this. So layer properties. What I can do, I can start to make, let me take like this building photo layer and make it invisible, because right now it's checked as visible. If I uncheck it and apply it, look, it disappears. Now it hasn't been deleted, it's just been made invisible because I've made that layer not visible. If I check that and apply it again, it comes back. You can do things like lock it. And so let me lock that, apply it. And then if I come back to the screen, hit OK, I can't mess up that photo right there. And that's really a really common use of layers. People will let's go back to the office floor plan that we talked about earlier. People will draw out like what they they think a new office is going to look like, and then they'll send that to their peers and say, hey, how should we arrange the furniture in this new office? And they'll take all the walls and the windows and the doorways, and they'll lock those, but they'll make all the furniture shapes ones that people can manipulate. And so then people don't by accident move the actual structure. They just move the furniture so that people can have these different furniture arrangements, ideas for different furniture arrangement. So that's it, kind of a cool use. So I'm going to go back to layers and layer properties. And you've got like colors, like I mentioned here. As you look in the book, around page 135 is where you can read about the detailed descriptions about what each one of these different characteristics is. And so check that out. That's I think a really neat feature of Visio, the ability to not only layer things on your screen, but then to assign names to those layers, and then to modify the characteristics of those individual layers by name and lock them. Pretty cool stuff. So that's the chapter. It's a lot, and I hope that it's all made sense to you. I combined several things into the examples that I've showed you have combined many different parts of the text all together. But I think I think you guys can handle that. If you have questions, let me know. These are certainly things I want you to be able to demonstrate in your homework assignments. These are skills you need to master. But I thank you for your time and attention. Have a great